It's all tangled up. Tangle, tangle, tangle. Per second. One can something insurance company. My is T-Mobile. Is T-Mobile. So if you want, if you want fine quality internet like you're seeing here, then look at T-Mobile. Now I'm at usable 19 frames per second, 15 frames per second, 2590 kilobits per second. These are readings that are being provided to me by my YOLO box, telling me, it's kind of like a feedback telling me what the strength and health of my live stream is. It's pretty handy. And I've actually seen this on, I've been starting to use what's it called? Lapse, which has a free version. I can't find somewhere else, because I also use one called, again, T-Mobile. If you want data service like what you're seeing here, using Pinnacle, that's a free one. And I'm looking for one. I may have found one, sort of. It only streams to Facebook, though. And there's something wrong with my Facebook setting. And that's what I'm looking for. If I could do that on my phone. Although there's an issue with phone overheating when you use it like that. And then, you know, then you find yourself, your phone will quit in the middle of a live stream. And that's also your source of your hotspot. So it's okay. And it also seems to, there we go again. This fine data plan that I'm using is brought to you by T-Mobile. But it seems like the YOLO box may not stream as well as some of the other things that I've seen, but I don't know that. I'm still testing it out. It's streamed, as a matter of fact, tonight I got to test it out to see if I resources via the USB dongle. Well, my mini switcher. Oh, 47, 54, 56. I stayed up late last night. I was watching YouTube later of these shows, and he started for ITV, independent television, in the 60s with you know, the spaceships and the airplanes, and one thing is they would have but oh, it was better. It was 1970 for a TV show. The effects on it were Moonbase Alpha, and the Eagle transporters were supposed to be super fast. Last one happened was they allowed ITV had two divisions. They had that, and they ruined the show. TV show has a Tiddlywinks, you know? Oh, we got the Tiddlywinks Championship. We got to cover that. Years old at the time, 76. And it was The Muppet Show. And then, you know, in the Space spot came on The Muppet Show. And I'm like, where did Space 1999 go? Where's my show? And there were a couple times they would do that, and then they would show Space 19 as I could, and then it just completely disappeared, and I was so disappointed. And back then you didn't have YouTube or anything. You couldn't get things on the internet, watch on demand or anything. You didn't even have to buy something and watch it like we were doing in the 80s and 90s. Oh, I could buy that, or I could rent it. Whatever the TV networks gave you and stuff. And they could care less if they provided you any content at all. And a lot of content back in the... Now if you watch Space 1999, I don't understand why that's so cutting edge. It's horrible. Blah, 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 blah. You gotta remember that back at that time, that was about the only thing of its type that was airing on TV, and it was cutting edge. Effects and everything are kind of hokey, and the explosions are sort of weird and everything, and the storylines are kind of eh. Just think about, well, if that was the only thing, and I mean, a lot of the companies make Space 1999, and I think they should, but I don't know if they should call it Space 1999. They should call it, I don't know. Well, the new effort was to call it Space 2099, with the same ideas of the TV show. And the big idea of that TV show was the pilot episode, which was called Breakaway, which the plot line goes that the world had ventured into space, and we were routinely commuting back and forth to the moon and going out into outer space and everything. And we had a moon base, a permanent moon base called Moon Base Alpha, and we were stockpiling all the nuclear waste on the moon because we didn't have any place to put it, so we were burying it on the moon. And then Moon Base Alpha's big job was to monitor all this nuclear waste. Well, something was happening on the moon. Magnetic something was causing all the nuclear waste to become unstable in this barrier. And people who were in charge of going out and inspecting the waste and everything, where radiation was killing them. September 13th, 1999, the nuclear stockpiles went critical and exploded, causing a huge nuclear explosion on the moon, rocketing the moon out of Earth's orbit, turning the moon essentially into one giant spaceship. And Moonbase Alpha is lost forever, and you know, Earth, although they don't talk about that too much except in later episodes, it pretty much destroys the Earth. You know, billions of people dead, and because the gravitational effects of the moon rocketing out of orbit, be stable. Alright, I need to go this way. I'm going to try and figure out how to get here, where I'm going. I'm going back to nursery, which is on yesterday off, and now I don't do anything. School, you can't go camping. The weather is like, April is a good month. I'd like to take days off in April, but about stuff we have to take care of, which is a bunch of crap. There's too many people in this world that need to be babysat. Up ahead, I believe, this place with all the lights. Have I mentioned that my fine internet is being provided by T-Mobile? That's my IM. We're headed for Andres. I don't even know if this place is open. A lot of places are closing early these days because of the peanut. You know what? I still love hot wings. I'm going to see about getting some hot wings. It looks open. Can I park close in? Ooh, maybe it's not open. The restaurant, the parking lot is empty. Well, we'll see. I might be disappointed here because this parking lot is pretty damn empty. Pretty empty. Alright. Dongies are like, take us with you. Whoops. What the heck is going on here? Hyperlapse. Take us with you. Sorry, dongos. Let me switch it to something more appealing so you can actually look at the dongos while I go in and find out this place is closed. I'll be back. walking into the car. That whole 10 frames a second. Alright, let me... Alright. Handle connected. I hate it when you're talking through these masks and which one? I want the pocket. Pocket, yes, it gave me the pocket. There's my face. Let me do this, make it a little more stable. Well, the weather is certainly wonderful. It's our anniversary on Monday. So me being ever so original, I'm going back to my Valentine's thing. I got a cake for the missus. Let her know I'm thinking about her, and I'm thinking about going next door and getting hot wings. I remember how good peanut hot wings are, so I'll get some hot wings. Wangs. Did this puppy stay on? Yep, it's still on. How do they feel about me walking in there with this camera? Probably think I'm a weirdo. I find that bars are not necessarily the most progressive places in the world. A lot of people like to just drink and be left alone. Oh, I'm looking at the YouTubes. Let's go to live. There we are, live. By the time I get to Hammer Press, I'm sure they'll be completely shut. They're probably not open now. A lot of places, this beer-fluenza has been bad for the economy in ways I don't know if a lot of places will ever be able to recover. And I think I'm about to get political here again. What's really been bad for the economy has been a federal response, and people who supposedly care a lot about economics screwed the pooch. You know, with a weak federal response to an emergency such as this. And it's funny because these people are supposedly pro-defense and pro-life, pro all this, and they react, you know, neo-Confederates. There's a reason why the Confederate States of America got their asses whipped in the war. And you do realize that the North literally had their hands tied behind. Both hands tied behind there was proportional to the emergency. The Confederates wouldn't have lasted a week. But we drug it out and made it worse by, you know, not being so fully committed to the effort. The most destructive, the most, and to think, the Union fought it half-heartedly. Many people had so much else to do. So I don't know if there's nothing else that's ever changed the way we are dealing with it now. It is like night and day. And the way we're dealing with it now is probably not anything spectacular either, but Look at this. You gotta watch these parking lots too, especially at night, because people like to hide out in these places and funk people's heads like this. I'm gonna maybe try not this peanut, although I think this is the original peanut. Originally. You know what? There's parking over here, and there's parking across the street. Beep, 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 beep. Yes, I know. So it's not impossible. I just can't. Their parking lot is kind of not very user friendly. Tiny spaces and not much room to move around. And there's a big SUV in there. But if I don't mind walking a few steps, there's plenty of parking. It's what we call Irish parking. Plenty of. Roch, yeah. I know what I'll do. I'm gonna bring my subtle. I'm not gonna bring my big Osmo. I'm gonna bring my little Osmo. Try and cover up some of this stuff. What did I do with my little Osmo? Don't do that. Jimmy, if you tear into any of this stuff, you might not go home tonight. There it is. There's my little Osmo. You leave this stuff alone. Alright, we're going to lose my audio. Well, for my other microphone. I have like 4 of these somewhere. And I can only find one. That's crummy. You know what? At the risk of making this huge, turn on. These roads transmitters don't like to turn on so well. Alright. So I'm making this huge mongoose. Alright, I'm set. Woohoo! Away we do. Doggies guard the car. Jimmy, don't eat anything inappropriate. You eat this, not only will you make yourself definitely sick, but I'll eat you. You got me? Hi, Jimothy. Hold on here. Oh, there you go. My dog keeping everybody company. Oops. Says it's the best wings in Kansas City. Well, I don't know about the best, but they're pretty good. It's kind of worth the wait, actually. Alright, let's switch this. I think we shall be on our way. Maybe one more stop. Where are we now? Where are we going? Put that on navigation. Alright, it says one-way street. That doesn't look like it goes anywhere. We're surrounded by really tall apartments. Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Drinking a Coke and their mixture in there is kind of light on the carbonation and heavy on the syrup, actually. Alright, this says one way, this way. Let's hope this actually goes somewhere. I don't. This doesn't go anywhere, does it? What the hell? You know what? I don't care if it says one way. There's nowhere else to go. I don't care for this. Ritzy Ritz neighborhoods and their gerrymandering streets. There's absolutely nowhere else to go. High dollar condos here south of the plaza. It is 53 degrees according to the car thermometer, but it's one of those days where it's very damp and so it feels colder than the ambient temperature. In Missouri, they say that if I were to move somewhere, like you would have winter days in single digits for long period. It feels more comfortable than the ambient temperature. Again, I used to work, was engineering assistant, but before that it was called site developer, and you know, of course, part of our job, and the base was Whiteman Air Force Base. That's the home of the B-2 bomber. And when we were there, the whole runway we're rebuilding it from scratch. Ruh-roh. Popo. Let him through, let him through. Alright, any more of that? What this pick 'em up truck is trying to do, I think he's trying to get out of the runway a lot. I remember we did a centerline survey. We called them the BB stackers. And the BB stackers' real job was to take the nuclear weapons and put them in. That was a big job. They had this, it was a missile hauler. And what they would do is they would take the warhead off of the Minuteman Warrensburg. That convoy came through town several times, and it was like, oh yeah, they're hauling a nuclear weapon right through the heart of town. Nuclear warhead. But, so they would take the warhead off, and then they would haul the missile. Well, the missile could be even more dangerous. I mean, at least the warhead, it was pretty stable. You had to have special codes and everything. You had to intentionally blow that thing up to create an explosion. But the missile itself was full of fuel that was very explosive. Now, if I remember right, when they took the missile out of the hole, out of the silo, I think they took the fuel out, or at least part of the fuel. And then they loaded it in this big trailer that went like this, and it had a big winch in the top, and it reached down, pulled the missile out of the hole, and then the thing went, and then this funny looking truck, kind of a one-of-a-kind deal, drove it with escort. I believe they escorted those too. And drove it to the base where, you know, they did whatever, repaired the missile or modified the missile, whatever. I think usually they did that because they had to do modifications or something, maintenance on them. It was a big deal, but I'm really taking a short story, making it long. But the area that we had to survey one time was this area that they were using as an old part of World War II era runway that was no longer being used as a runway, so they used it to test drive these trucks and to test the I forget what they called that part. It was the missile loader, and they had to test that because you did not want to have a cable break while you're pulling this very volatile thing out of a hole that's full of, also itself full of fuel and contaminants, and you know, you don't want that to break. That would cause all sorts of mayhem and trouble and destroy things. And missiles have blown up before in the silos, and they've blown up with their warhead on top. And fortunately, I think that a couple of times that happened, it blew the warhead clear, and you know, they went and found their warhead really quick and made sure they got it, and, you know, killed people and everything else like that. So the Air Force was very cautious about testing all of these missile loaders, and I believe it was called the Missile Load Test Facility. And you know, they test the cables and the winches before they send them out, so they lift them up and test it. And so we had to do like a centerline survey because they were having all sorts of drainage problems, because the Air Force Base, Whiteman Air Force Base, was built on a really desirable piece of land back in World War II. It was an area that was actually too swampy to be used as farmland. So the Air Force bought it and used it, or Army Air Force bought it and used it, named after one of the airmen who didn't make it up in the Pearl Harbor attack, who was killed trying to get his airplane airborne by the Japanese, George Whiteman. And so we're out there doing this survey, and of course, you know, the engineers, military engineers were not the best of their breed. They were kind of a lot of them were kind of like rejects. And I mean, by military engineers, I mean the civilian engineers. And a lot of them were just like, you know, they kicked their feet up, and they had to be drugged, kicking and screaming, literally, if they didn't get their contracts completed and out the door for the contractors to work on them. And so one of these bundles of contracts, all of a sudden we had to do in a hurry, and it happened in November when the Missouri weather is really beautiful. So we had to do this centerline survey of this swampy piece of crap land that they had a runway built on at one time, but it all deteriorated, And it was so bad that even these trucks that are in charge of hauling nuclear missiles around were having a hard time getting through it and getting stuck, and terrible rutty road. And so we were doing this centerline survey to figure out the drainage patterns of their weapons trucks. And we're doing this in November. Well, I tell you what, the military is not known for giving you the best clothing. So the sergeant, and this was like, I had just come out of my training, and this was like one of the first jobs I had to do. It was help this staff sergeant. He was training us on how to be surveyors and draftsmen. He was basically doing all our training. And he was like, I'm not sure if I'm in the right place here. I'm gonna go to a drive-through here, pick up something for the missus. But anyway, he was like, yeah, you know, this is what you do. And he was telling us, oh, you know, if you're relying on here, this, and it'll go right out and buy yourselves good jackets, and you know, try and get yourself issued something. And he also said, the one piece of clothing that the Air Force has is the envy of all the military. And he said, but those things are a bit too warm. They're a little bit overkill. And the Air Force regulation for dress code was called 3510. AFR or something, 3510, which tells you how you're supposed to, your haircut, you know, what kind of facial hair you can have, which for most people in the Air Force is a thin little mustache. It almost made you look like Adolf Hitler. So, and what kind of glasses you can wear, what kind of hat, where you wear your hat, basic, what do they called them? I forget what they called them. And in the military, it has to, if it has a button, it has to be zipped. So you couldn't walk around with parka, and it's on a day that's not downright, is that 3510, and tie it off. So it basically made you look like Kenny on South Park. Otherwise, it had to be down, and you know. So it basically took this article of clothing, and otherwise you were out of 3510 if you wore it unzipped. And you know, I have a parka that I love to wear it, and it's very comfortable. I have another parka that's a non-military one. It's kind of like it, but my Air Force parka, you know, you had to turn them in at the end of the time or buy them, and then they were really expensive. So I went to a military surplus store, wore the heck out of it. I still have it. I love my parka. Free weather, and that's referring to the weather here. It's when it's in the winter time, when it's 50-degree moisture in the air, and you know, it's all wet and yucky, and it feels a lot worse than it is. And you know, if you live somewhere like Montana or the northern states, North Dakota, whatever, where it's not as humid up there, then it doesn't feel so bad when in the winter time. You know, and speaking of Air Force, I had always heard there's a missile base up in Minot, North Dakota. It's notorious. It's considered to be one of the worst bases in the lower 48. And the jokes go that the saying there is, why not Minot? Freezing's the reason. And what else do they say? Oh, and the state bird up there is the mosquito, and the state tree is the telephone pole. And then I watch these videos by some of my travelers that I watch, and they're like, oh yeah, I went and visited Minot. I'm like, yeah, it kind of looks like an interesting place to go visit. I just don't go visit in the middle of winter. But other than that, and we went up to North Dakota with a friend of ours, and he showed us how thinly populated parts of North Dakota are. Like, there's many miles between towns, and a town might have, what they would call a town might have 8 people. Like we went to go visit Calvin, North Dakota, and I think the population at its peak was maybe 100, and now the population is about 8. We explored an abandoned school in a school where his daughter went. What was the name of that town? Sayre, North Dakota. Or no, not Sayre, Sarles. And for fun, the nearest big town that they went to go visit on weekends or, special occasion was about 2-3 hours away, and that's Winnipeg, Canada. So we crossed over the border to go visit this town that this old farmer loved to go visit when he was going crazy, loneliness on the farm, and he'd take his family and they'd load up and get in the van and besides the art museum and all the other places, theaters and the what's the name of that? Canada, and he was really sad when we went there. He said, "Oh, this place is not the way it used to be. It used to be very fancy. It was like 4 floors tall, big department store, and at the very top was these really nice restaurants." He said when they went to Winnipeg, they always made a point to go eat at the East India Company restaurants at the top. He said, "Oh, all that's closed now, and you can't eat anything in here." And in the store, they got 3 store floors open, but the floors were half empty. Blankets, because they had these big, heavy wool blankets, and they were the standard all over, not only Canada but the United States. Traders would buy these blankets up and go out into the wilderness, loaded down with them, to trade with the indigenous people and the different tribes, and after you get everything from like a 1 stripe, which would be like a baby's blanket, all the way up to a 5 stripe. But it was pretty expensive. If you got the biggest blanket they had, it was the most expensive. And also they have a way of like, and a traditional way of displaying and folding it on your bed. I mean, it's like a real I expect that I have, I'm in the heart of the beast. We have the auto restaurants. As a matter of fact, I was a little bit, my haze, which is not much bigger, when I'm wearing masks, down, you're having, none of the bar, just like, whatever. So I was having this conversation with, thinks there's a lot of misinformation going around, a lot of scaring people, and I'm like, yeah, well, I kind of, yeah, there's some agreement there, but he was saying things about, well, the masks really aren't effective, and I said, well, yeah, they are. I mean, it's not just a matter of just wearing a mask. It's a whole list of things. The mask, keeping your social distance, don't hang out with somebody pushing and touching things, and not going to really help you at all. You are by wearing a mask. So you wear a mask. Egregious walking, and I saw a lot of people who didn't even bother to wear masks and stuff. They're like wearing their politics on their stupid shoulders, and I'd see them, and I'd go deliberately right in front of them to make sure, let them know, and they look at me like, like, well, you know what? I'm not protecting you if you're not protecting me. Put your damn mask on. This is Kansas City on a Saturday night during the beerfluenza epidemic. This will be probably the height of Kansas. Actually, in good weather, it's a lot more active too, but during normal times, but right now we have that big basketball thing going on. Uh-oh. Streetcar is honking at somebody. I have no way of knowing with this thing how many people are actually watching. It's probably the one. I'm beginning to suspect that maybe the one is just me. It's like I'm watching it and it's playing it back for me. Although that doesn't necessarily work on, I don't know. I got to take this stuff home and take it apart and try and see if it'll work with the 3 cameras. And I don't want to do that. Every time on Saturday night, I don't want to do that, and I usually end up having to do it Sunday morning, which is not desirable. I mean, there's plenty of time on Sunday morning, actually. If I get up early enough, I can do a lot, but I need to set it up on Saturday night and make sure it works properly, and then take it apart, maybe on Sunday morning. And how many years ago that was, I was in the Air Force. I always knew I wanted to try the military at least once. When I was in junior high and high school, I always talked about getting in the military. I said to myself, I'm only going to do it as an officer. I won't do it as an enlisted. Yeah, well, I went in enlisted. Unless you go to the Air Force Military Academy in Colorado Springs, the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs is a appointee officer, which is really tough to do. You gotta have really good grades, which I never did. Then you can go in as a art officer, and yeah, I mean, you get your degree and then you go to the Air Force for 4 or 6 years as a second lieutenant. I don't know. I believe, what is it, we had Captain Krosno. That guy was sharp. That's one of the reasons why he was my favorite. And a lot of the others were ROTC. They were hit or miss. A lot of them were like, they kind of filled their heads with "you must respect my authority" kind of thing, and they didn't know their asses from a hole in the ground. I mean, it's true what they say, that the NCOs, the non-commissioned officers, the sergeants, run everything, and a lot of them knew their jobs and were respected, and then there were a few of them that were dinks, couldn't handle. And I had a hard time with authority and paying attention, just like our kids that we are dealing with now. Very similar to me, unfortunately. So my illustrious career wasn't so great. I was kind of the misfit. Sent them out of the the place where the most of us work and make them work with the other misfits. There were a whole bunch of us, and it was funny because we were kind of like really happy and proud to be the misfits. We're like, yeah, they send us to like their version of Siberia, and we were just like, oh my God, this is so much better than where I was. I hated working. I had one sergeant who was always about creased uniforms and with lots of starch, and his shoes were polished so well you could see your reflection all the way to hell in them, and he was all about making a good impression, and this and that and the other thing, and he was all the time playing golf to make a good impression, and he was never in the shop, and we asked him for help us train, and he didn't want to do it, and he didn't even know how to do it. The real person everybody referred to, his name was Doug, he did everything. He ran. Yeah, we worked out of an office. We worked with the engineers. We had the engineering area where all the civil engineers, mechanical engineers. Most of them were civil. There were a couple of electrical engineers, and their job was to design the contracts for the contractors to bid on, and they had to design the contracts, come up with all the specifications, and then make sure that they were there weren't a bunch of loopholes, because these contractors, the U.S. government contractors, love to wait. There was a contractor at risk of any kind of liability. I won't say who they are. They're probably still around. And we used to say that this contractor was 5% construction firm and 95% law office, because they knew how to finagle government contractors and milk them to the nth degree. Is this place even open, even though it says it is? Alright, go on this side. Remember, you can go on this side. I need to put my ash cone. Oops. And yeah, we got frustrated to no end with this contractor. The Siberia they sent me to was essentially the inspection office. My job was to hound these contractors to honor their warranties when something they built didn't work very well. It was under warranty. Hello.
What can I get for you?
Do you have something like sugar-free cinnamon?
Not cinnamon, but we have sugar-free vanilla, hazelnut, caramel, and mocha.
Can I just get a large mocha?
Yeah. You want it sugar-free?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll try
Anything
that.
else for you?
Nope, that's it.
It's gonna be $5.32.
Thank you. Here's where my sore arm hurts me. That is really bad. You too. Smells very mocha-y. Yes, I am going to the doctor after I get my beer flu shot to figure out. I've been to the doctor and told them what was going on, and they gave us some anti-inflammatory, and I've taken it and it just doesn't seem to do anything. And he said, well, if it doesn't work, come back. So we have to schedule that appointment. And every one of us in our house, we went and got the flu shots, except for Luke, at the same time. And every one of us complained that our arms hurt after. Well, yeah, and then the kids, it went away, supposedly. I don't know, every so often they complain that their arms hurt, but I think that's more or less they're kind of copying us. But Sienna and I, our arms hurt still. And she says hers hurts, but not as bad. Mine, I can only go about, I can go higher. I can go about this high now. But sometimes I can only lift my arm up to here, and it starts hurting so bad. And if I twist it the wrong way or push it the wrong way, I get these shooting pains that are so horrible. So yeah, reactions to shots are real. And I wouldn't believe it was caused by the shot, and I didn't think about it at first. I thought there was something else wrong with me. I even thought for a while that I was having a heart attack, and I even went to the doctor and did the stress test and everything, and said I'm healthy as a horse. And so when I was talking about it, my wife said, you know, my arm really hurts too. And she said, I think it's from that flu shot we had. And this was like at the beginning of October. So now I don't know what happened. If we all got a bad batch, or if we were given a shot by somebody who really wasn't qualified to do it, which is very possible because they sort of were making a big deal out of this thing and showing off, and so they got a person, I think, that was not yeah, she's a registered nurse, but she had spent her whole career managing nurses and not actually nursing, is what I've been told. Now that's just a theory, and I'm not trying to point fingers or place blame. I'm just saying, is there something that was not done right? Were we given, you know, like shots have to be, depending on what it is, they have to be kept refrigerated condition, and you know, if you open them up too soon, and maybe we were given something that actually kind of spoiled, and I don't know. And I'm gonna, when I go for my ear flu shot, it's gonna be in the other arm, and hopefully it doesn't kill me too, and have both arms. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I've just had these bad experiences with, personal experiences with it, to the point that I resist getting vaccinated as much as possible. This is the first time in probably 20 plus years I've gotten a flu shot. And, you know, speaking of the Air Force, I had a really bad experience in the Air Force, which is why I don't like getting flu shots. My experience was that I got this flu shot. I was forced to get a flu shot. They could actually order you to do it. So they had us all go in all at once, and they ordered us, you're getting a flu shot. So we go in and get the flu shot, and it made me really sick. It killed me. And then they wouldn't let me go home and rest it off. They're like, no, you need to work. So I had to work through this terrible sickness. And after that, I'm like, no more, no more. then to kind of hammer that famous news anchor, and his wife went in to go get a flu shot. Dutifully gone in to get a flu shot. And after she got her flu shot, her whole body went numb. She wasn't paralyzed, but it's like she couldn't feel anything. Like if you touched her, she wouldn't know. Her whole body just went numb. And she's like, I can barely move, and she got really, really sick. And the worst part about it was she never got over it. I mean, she always still has leftover from that experience. And I'm like, just not for me. Now, I guess I have to qualify that the reactions are very, very, very rare, and yes, there are reactions that do happen, and some side effects can be very serious, but what I'm saying is supposedly super rare. It's not unheard of, but it's super rare that it ever happens. And even, yeah, you can get a flu shot, you can get sick. I mean, the worst one was not the flu shot, it was the, the tetanus shot. And I got that shot, and again, it was required by the military, so I go in and get the shot. And they're like, yeah, you have to, you're going to be sore for about a day, and you have to move your arm around, keep moving it around, and the soreness will go away. I'm like, yeah, it made me sore, it made me feel like crap, but that was expected. I didn't mind that one so much, but it was one of the worst shots too. COVID shot, and I said, well, it's okay if you don't want to. I mean, nobody should really force you to. I mean, we are after herd immunity, and as long as enough people in this country get their shots, it's fine. Not everybody has to get one, and not everybody should have one, actually. Some people have conditions that might keep them from. It's just, I feel like it's a good idea to get one. Help yourself, protect others. And he said, yeah, he's feeling like he's going to get some, he's going to get negative reaction from people, and that there's so much peer pressure going on right now. And we started talking about, and I don't like liberal Nazis. And, I've always said when I was talking politics, that an ideologue is an ideologue. There's no difference between an ideologue. Whether you are left or right, it's the same kind of heart. It's the same black and white, up or down, linear thinking. A person who calls himself a progressive, but still they're an ideologue, doesn't matter. The liberal ideologue, conservative. And he said, yeah, well, this comedian said a really funny quote. He said, left boot, right boot. When it's up your ass, does it really matter? And I'm like, yeah, that's true. That is very true. So it's become my favorite saying, left boot, right boot. When it's kicked up your ass, does it really matter which one they're wearing? It still feels the same. Fascism is fascism. These days the focus is in on the right-wing nuts, and I'm like, you do realize that the right-wing nuts tried to take over the Capitol building and tried to start a coup, but you know what? Over in Oregon, the left-wing nuts are doing the same damn thing. They're destroying Portland, and trying to take over a whole city. So there's the illustration right there. Does it really matter which shoe they wear? No. It still feels the same when it's up your ass. everybody who can watch this can see what I did today. And the biggest waste of time I did today was hang out at the coffee house, which, you know, I want to get away for my days off. It hasn't been much of a few days off anyway. But the biggest chunk of time was spent waiting on the hot wings at the Peanut. I think they only have one cook in there and he's doing everything, and so yeah, their main mission is not to sell food anyway, even though they're a place that's known as having the best wings in Kansas City. Well, they better be good, because we waited a long time for them. All right, I'm trying not to scare this person as I go by her. I don't want to make her, all of a sudden there's a car right next to her and scares her and she jumps and falls into me. That would be